Hey everyone, this is Jono from Veracity with another video in my video series. This one on our LRS platform multi-tenancy. This is sort of a follow-up to last week's where we talked about sharing an LRS with other users, but you'll see there is a distinction here on our true multi-tenancy and just having multiple LRSs. I know that can be confusing because a lot of other organizations, if you can create more than one LRS instance, that is another tenant, but it's a little bit different for us. So of some slides today, and then we'll do a quick demo. So let's say you have an LRS platform. This is the Veracity LRS platform. And the way it actually looks within an instance of our server is you have multiple users. Here we have 3. And each one of those, each one of their accounts is a tenant on the platform. Each tenant can have 1, 2, 3, 10, 100 LRSs. Now there are some ways that you can restrict that within the platform and you can set limits, but in general, LRS instances are associated with someone's tenant in the platform. So our user over here on the left-hand side is this tenant, and they have 1, 2, 3 LRSs. Doesn't have to be 3, could be as many as are necessary. With each instance of an LRS, you get the reporting functionality, the analytics functionality, the data manipulation functionality, all the other administrative functionality, all the exporting functionality, and everything else that I didn't put in this list because it would have taken a long time to type. You get one of those with each LRS. Even a learner portal. You get a learner portal associated with each LRS. So let's just, in that single tenant for our leftmost user, if we look at it, it looks more like this. So this top LRS, let me grab my highlighter. This top LRS right here, instance 2, has a reporting analytics package, data manipulation, a learner portal, and all of those things. LRS instance 1 has its own copy of those. LRS instance N has its own copy, and that is all part of this user's tenant. Like that. Okay. Let me shut that off. Great. So let's clean that up a little bit. And remember, each tenant can have their own LRSs. So our 3 accounts each have a tenant. Each of those have their own set of LRSs. This drawing is about to get really messy, and I expect it to get really messy. That's okay. Bear with me. We'll go through it a little bit at a time. So the way this works is each one of these users, our leftmost user, our center user, and our rightmost user, they are the owners of the LRSs in their tenant. They are the account that is the owner of the tenant. They created the LRSs, and therefore they are the owner. So we've got a little key up here in the left-hand side that you can see. The red lines mean they are the owner. So let's complicate this a little bit. Let's say that the person who owns these 2 right here, let me just highlight them. The person that owns this LRS and this LRS instance is this person, because it's their tenant. They have shared, you see these new pink lines, this one and this one. And it looks like our center guy also had another one in here that I forgot about. But anyway, the idea is the owner of these shared with another user. So now our leftmost user has access to these LRSs that were shared with them. Notice that in this case, we've said that pink is admin. So we've given them admin access to those LRSs. Let's go a step further, make this messier. Okay, now our center user, let me highlight again. Our center user, who owns this LRS and this LRS, has shared them with this user. Also, it looks like this one as well. 3 LRSs shared with our rightmost user by our center user. And in this case, they just gave them edit permissions. So again, shared, but you're not an administrator. So you can edit things, but you can't do some of the admin items. Let's move on. Same thing, getting messier. Now, our rightmost user was shared by the leftmost user, some of their LRS, but just in view only, and let's just get through this. You can also do custom permissions that aren't just, admin, edit, view. You can really do your own granular permissions about what features in the LRS instances people see. So this looks like a mess, right? The idea is, a user account gets a tenant. That tenant has LRSs, and then there are rules at the LRS instance level that person can go ahead and share out different LRSs. So caveat to that, I'm going to get to it in a little bit. Finally, to cover something we've covered earlier, you're thinking there's all these LRSs, they all have data, they all have different stuff, they all have analytics platforms. What if I want to get stuff into one place? Why don't we add some more lines? Of course, you can forward data from these LRSs to other LRSs within your tenant or outside your tenant or even outside this platform if you wanted to. So yes, your tenant has LRSs and LRSs data and the tools on them are intentionally siloed. But if you want to explicitly share that information externally, you have the ability to do that in the system as well. All right, so I'm going to pop into just a very quick demo here in a second, but I want to say very important. If you want these multi-tenant features that allow you to manage users and kind of manage the tenants, not share LRSs, that's not, that's separate. But if you want to actually, manage the tenants, you need to have a dedicated software as a service plan. We have a couple of those. Or you need to have on-prem licenses where you host the software yourself. And we have licenses that allow you to do that. We also have shared software as a service plans where you are part of an infrastructure with other people. In those cases, you do not have access to the multi-tenant features because you are on a shared platform with other people. You're one of those tenants in the diagram that I had just shown. Okay, let's do a quick demonstration. I should have an LRS open here. There we go. Okay, so this LRS, when I'm logged in, it looks like any other LRS that we've been demoing for the most part. I can see my LRSs that I created that are part of my tenant. I created them, I own them. But I also see somebody else in this system has an LRS called training, and they've shared it with me. And I know that because of this permission thing, they've given me admin, but a topic for another day. We'll get into that in another video. Now, in most cases, that's all you see when you're in here if you are not the administrator of a tenant. But if I scroll down, you'll see I've got all kinds of tools that you don't see when you are not the administrator of the platform. For example, I can manage users. I can go in and see a grid of all my users. I can create a new user. With these users, I have actions where I can, unverify them or verify them in the event that, they don't get an email or something like that to verify their account. I can lock them, disable them. I can reset their passwords. I can even show what LRSs, impersonate them or see what LRSs they have. I am administering these accounts. I can also set a tier. And what that tier does is it puts some limits in place on the amount of LRSs they can use and other things like that. So anyway, unlike the shared plans, here you really get to go in and manage your users, your accounts, and the tenants that they have. Let's go back to that main page again just to talk about a few other things. And I won't get into these in detail because they could each be their own topic easily. Turn on highlighter again. Here we go. View logs, view errors. You can look at not just, XAPI errors to one LRS in this whole platform. I want to look across the whole platform. What's going on? Are there errors? Are there problems with the platform? Again, features that you don't have when you just have a single tenant. Manage plugins. What are the plugins that I want to use for the system-wide? Do we have some single sign-on or something like that, for example? Manage system API keys. You can create API keys and distribute them to another application, for example, and then that application can actually spin up and create LRSs or create users or create access keys, those types of things. Scrolling down a little bit further, plugins and permissions. If you have custom plugins, number one, you can write them and install them in your dedicated environment or your on-prem environment. You can actually write custom plugins. Shared environment can't really do that because you're in a shared environment. And then Just because they're in the platform doesn't mean all of the LRS instances that all of your tenants have can use them. So you can manage the permissions of those plugins and the dashboard plugins, and you can assign what users are able to use them or what LRS instances are able to use them. So you have a lot of flexibility to roll out features to your tenants in your population. And then some utility information down below about viewing the configuration and license and whatnot. So I know I went through that quickly, but you can see there's a lot of detailed stuff on this page that you don't typically get if you are not an administrator of your own platform. So when we are talking about multi-tenancy, we're not talking about, hey, I just have one tenant and I created multiple LRSs. We're talking about a platform that can manage users, and each of those users has their own tenant that has its own LRSs, and then you can share between those. So there's a lot that you can do with the multi-tenant features in the LRS. I'm going to continue this, I think maybe another week or two, or at least down the road a little bit, to talk about the permissions between the LRSs, because there's a lot that you can do with sharing an LRS, and I talked in the last video about how just to do a share. But as far as those granular permissions and how they work, I think that'll be another topic for another video. All right, great. We're going to go ahead and call it there for today. If you like the video, please click the subscribe button or the thumbs up button. Thanks for watching, and have a good one.